In this second video for the lesson walkthrough for Unit 4, Day 18, I'm going to show you how I turned the lesson into a Google Doc for students. Before I do that, though, I just want to show you the student workbook because it plays a big role in this lesson. So if you use a student workbook or if you've been thinking about it, I'm going to just remind you how to get to it and what it can be used for in this particular lesson. It's available in the same place that you access the slide deck for these lessons in the Passport to Social Studies for Digital Learning Google Drive. Um, to see the units, you would access grade 8 and then click on the correct unit for your class. But to access the student workbook, you're going to just go to the same place as the units and click on the student workbooks, then click on the unit. So you'll see it has all the units for the year already loaded up. And then it actually is in a lot of different languages, which is so great. Um, you have to download it to look at it because it's such a big file. So I already downloaded it over here. Once you have it, this particular lesson, day 18 of Unit 4, is starts on page 127. So students, if they have a hard copy of this or you've been giving them digital versions of it, they'll go to page 127, and it starts with a political cartoon. You'll notice that it doesn't have a space to answer any questions for the political cartoon. So if you are having them do this on hard copy, you might have them answer just underneath the cartoon. Then there is the chart for the economist's points of view, which is very much like it is in the slides. And then there is the economist's discussion. So it's all in one place, and that makes it a lot easier to look at than if kids have to look at multiple screens or kind of go back and forth. And so if you are using the student workbook, it is pretty much all here for you. But if you want it all in one place and you're not using the student workbook, the Google Doc is a great alternative. Um, I made the Google Doc in the same way that I have in previous lessons. It follows the flow of the Google slide lesson. It starts with the focus question, the lesson objective, and the background. Like I said in the last video, there is a lot of background in this lesson. So one way that you can have students engage with the um, with this much content is to have them annotate it. You can have them highlight, or you can color code highlighting for the most important details, or you can do a KWL chart, or you can have them comment on two things that they might feel are the biggest concerns. Make it fit your own class, but there's a lot of ways students can engage with the text when it's right there for them. And they could also do this in the Google Slides as well. The flow of the lesson again follows the same thing as the slides. So they start off with the political cartoon, and I put all the questions in one place. That's kind of the key for these Google Docs. I find just keeping all the information in one place so students aren't going back and forth. We know that we're already dealing with screens and Zoom or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams, and we're also dealing with other apps. So trying to keep it all as simple as possible has been my goal. So all the questions are in the same place here. You can delete a question, add a question, manipulate this however you want. The next task for students is to analyze the economist's viewpoints or from the discussion. So again, I put it all in one place. I didn't like having to make students go back and forth. So I made a chart with the viewpoints on the left and their questions on the right, trying to just keep it simple. And you'll notice that I have all 6 in here. But one thing that you can do to modify your lesson is just, if you don't want to do all 6, pick and choose. Or maybe you'll assign, if you're using a platform like Google Classroom, you'll assign some students to do all 6, and you'll assign some students to do 4 if you feel like that's more appropriate for them. The chart is the same as it is both in the workbook and on the slides, but I did want to talk about a couple ways you can modify it. The first thing is there is a column here that asks students to cite and explain their evidence, and I did that in the model, but I felt that it was a little redundant because they already pretty much had explained the evidence in writing the cause and writing why it caused the Great Depression. And I feel like this maybe was made originally because students were given a chart and they were given the viewpoints, and they weren't necessarily asked to go one by one. So teachers might have wanted students to cite the specific number economist, but since this is going kind of one by one, I actually change it to have students just highlight the most important evidence. So you can see that I already did that here. So instead of filling out an extra row or column, they would just highlight their most important evidence, and then pretty much the explanation is already here. That's just one way to modify it. I also really like this final question, asking students to think about, try to think deeper, try to question what they're reading, um, because it's a great way to get students to engage. And add their own ideas into the learning. So the lesson then continues on with the wrap up, which you can remove this blue box if you're just doing this in a discussion forum. But if you want students to respond in a written manner, you can keep it. And then the check for understanding, which synthesizes the lesson. So that's a simple way of making a Google Doc and having students follow along. So you can do that, make a copy of this lesson by accessing the link, and modify it to your own needs.